Hello everyone, welcome to episode 59 of Floating Through Film. This week we continue our series on Yasujirō Ozu with, honestly, this might be, so far, the two best Ozu movies that we've done, in my opinion.
Really? Over Late Spring?
Okay, and Late Spring, but at least these are two.
Oh, it's not the duo.
Two,
it's the duo.
as a duo.
Okay.
Yes,
I
as a
can
duo.
see that.
Like, I think I like both of these more than Tokyo Story.
Okay, Tokyo Twilight is my favorite Ozu, but like...
Okay, yeah.
it's just...
That's...
they're all... I don't even want to sing.
But let me introduce my co-host first, Luke.
Yeah. Hi.
And Blake.
What's up?
But yeah, that's kind of how I was going to start this episode, is because I know Blake...
Just a little Tokyo Story.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, that's what I was about to say. Just one more passing below a Tokyo Story, Nick.
Yeah. All I'll say is I'd probably take Tokyo Chorus 2 over it. That's all.
Whoa! Okay,
way too far. Way too far.
Okay.
I do love Tokyo Chorus though as well, but way too far.
That's insane.
No, but that's kind of how I was going to start this episode before I started on the kind of the way I've been doing it is. Do you guys kind of agree with me? Are these your two favorite? Are these up there in terms of Ozu movies? Because these are two. These are two very tonally different movies.
Oh yeah, I was gonna.
Which
bring
is
that
kind
up,
of amazing.
Like,
that's why I like them as a pair.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this when we talk about like early summers. Like I love chilling. Like this is such a chill Ozu movie.
Yes, even though it still has the dark, deep. It has the same very themes of Ozu.
But you don't have to pay attention, super pay attention to the details. You can, but you don't have to do it to enjoy the movie, which I love.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yes. But what about you, Blake? I know.
No, same. I was no. Well, I mean, we'll talk about it in Tokyo Twilight, especially, but the Ozu I've seen is not this dark.
Oh yeah.
Which I mean, like it's. I don't even want to say like it's super dark because Tokyo Twilight is just like it feels like his other movies it feels real. It feels like a real story.
Relative to Ozu, it's very dark.
No, yeah, but it just feels like all of his Tokyo stories are just taking different parts of a person's life or like different people's lives.
Different perspectives. Yeah.
Just different perspectives on how Tokyo has been affecting everyone. That's. But I wasn't expecting what happened in Tokyo Twilight. That's all I'll say. So
okay.
Like it was, but early summer, I agree with Luke. It's just a really chill movie, and I fucking love it. I mean, it is our mascot episode, like you guys said.
Mascot episode. Yeah, that's actually okay. That's a good way to put it because it is our picture too.
Yeah, it is.
No, and the music. Yeah.
This is the foundation. You know,
is this
your favorite Ozu movie? Would you say early summer? So you were the one who pushed for the mascot, and then our podcast is named after this balloon scene too.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you got the idea for floating through film.
Yeah.
So But is it your favorite Ozu movie though?
So far, it's been my favorite. I think once I get to the color ones, it might change to one of the.
I was gonna say I thought you were gonna say Late Spring, but
it's between those two.
Okay.
I do kind of like more of and this kind of will lead me to my first topic of I've been doing one content, one form for each week. Until what I was gonna say about the content is. I do like more of early summer. The more I've been thinking about what I like about films compared to Late Spring is early summer is more about the whole family.
Yes.
Where Late Spring is kind of more. It is about all of the family in some ways, but it is more just about them two, the two main characters. Yes. It is about just mainly their relationship.
Yes.
And kind of how it impacts both of them. But this one is more like decentralized. It has like.
Yes.
It shows you all the different effects.
So it's one of my favorite parts about it. Like, I mean, obviously you kind of see in Tokyo Story, but this one is like, first of all, it's earlier in Tokyo Story, and I feel like Tokyo Story is more focused on certain characters. Well, this one was like, it was more decentralized than Tokyo Story. Of course, it's before, but yeah. But yeah, he's channeling his inner Robert Altman. Like.
Or other way around.
Yeah, other way around.
I just wanted to say that, honestly.
But it's that kind of storytelling, though, right? Yeah. Where can you tell a story? And that's honestly that's to me what takes more directing craft or skill is where you don't have to lean on a single character just journey through a story. Where there's obviously great movies like that too. But
it's very easy. We're going to talk about that in the next series. A lot. Altman. He's a master at that. Honestly.
Yes, he does have some, but his are not just straightforward though. His still like almost wander, which I like more than it's just like A to B to C storytelling, which I like about Altman. If you see him, especially when I'm thinking a lot, the two I've seen is Long Goodbye and California Spring.
Oh, you haven't even seen what you can do with it though. That's the thing. You're gonna see. We'll get to that.
But okay, let me. That kind of, at least in some way, leads me to. I was going to start with the content this week, and I've tried to stick to at least like one word to base it around, and you'll see what I mean after I read the quote. But the word I picked this week is rose.
Okay.
And let me read the quote first, and it'll make sense. This is a quote from Ozu. And he said, quote, "Although I may seem the same to other people, to me each thing I produce is a new expression, and I always make each work from a new interest. It's like a painter who always paints the same rose."
Yeah, because he had a quote also about tofu.
Yes, tofu one.
Because like he said, like some people eat and make like pork or meat, but I make tofu. I can make different types of tofu.
Yes,
basically, yeah.
Well, and that's what I said earlier. Like that's like his movies just feel like different perspectives on Tokyo.
You could say,
like,
it's just about. And okay, this is kind of what
or like
I was going to
just
ask
different
you.
ways Tokyo affects a person. So
okay, but yes, that kind of leads me to what I was going to ask you guys is, what do you think Ozu meant by rose? Like, what is Ozu's rose basically? Because this is kind of what my content.
Well, I think he might be talking about like more the petals on a rose. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of petals on a single rose, right?
Yes. Well, I'm saying, like, what do you... Okay, so he said, it's like a painter who always paints the same rose. So what do you think Ozu's rose is that he's painting?
Rose he's painting. Tokyo?
Yes,
I think
that would be a good answer.
Okay,
that would be a good answer. That's a good answer.
Yeah,
that's one answer.
I think it's the family.
That's exactly right.
Tokyo.
That's really the answer I have. Is
it's both of them. It's both Tokyo.
Well, it's definitely
families
both
in
of them,
Tokyo,
yes.
basically.
Yes.
Like,
and that's kind of like when I talk about what Ozu is. What I love is you really can't mention one word without mentioning all these other words too, right? You can't mention family without mentioning Tokyo, the influence of Tokyo on the family, right?
Yeah.
Or vice versa too.
Yes.
But to me, like, at least the word I'm picking this week was family, because in one of the essays I read in that book I've been telling you guys about is they mentioned it too, as they mentioned the same quote, and they mentioned it as Ozu's rose was the Japanese family and how basically Tokyo was affecting it.
Yeah.
And like you were mentioning, it's all the different ways he could show that, and basically the infinite amount of ways, you know, because it is like, it's crazy. Like, just to think of the two movies we're doing today, you could say they're about, in some ways, like how modernization affects the Japanese family, right?
Yeah.
But they're just so different tonally. They're so different in terms of their approach, their optimism or pessimism. You know, just they're so different. Like how the characters handle them. It just you could say it's a rose, but at the same time, like there's a million different ways of painting a rose. You know,
this is kind of off, but just randomly thinking how kind of Antonioni is like kind of similar in a way. But instead, he's more talking about how modernization. He makes a lot of movies about how modernization affects relationships.
Okay, yeah. So
like human relationships.
It's that same theme. Like, remember, I think I mentioned that Renoir quote before. Is every great director is making the same film over and over again?
Yes.
It's kind of that same theme, right? They're just trying to find new ways to express almost that same idea or the same feeling of why they want to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
And to me, like, especially with these later, as we get to these later movies, because definitely with some of the early movies, you could say it's more like, in certain sense, it is about the college kids in some of the movies, or maybe more kid based. But in terms of later movie, it does become more about just the Japanese family itself, or maybe the suburban Japanese family, to be more specific.
Yeah. Even the early movies, though, they're still talking about how certain situations are affecting a certain group of people. Like it's not specifically about family per se, but it is like how is like the militarization in Japan, like in the background, basically kind of affecting how these how these kids act.
Yes,
like as they're going to college. So it's still like he's still like doing kind of the same thing. It's just a different group that he's looking at
in the earlier movies.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. Like. Yeah, that's why you could say even the early movies are the same theme. Through most of his movies. But I had a couple things I wanted to mention about the family in general, in terms of basically, at least we've kind of already talked about it, is basically like a couple of forces maybe on the family that you see throughout his movies. And the two I had were basically kind of modernization as like almost like as the future.
Yeah,
and then
life itself. Basically.
Tradition, though, also pulling people back, right?
Yeah.
And like I think, like basically, because it's funny, we're gonna watch all three of the Noriko movies.
Yeah,
the two we did last week, and then this one with Early Summer.
Okay.
Where she's specifically named Noriko.
Yes.
And that's significant too, because it is, I think, Ozu trying to like, obviously he's trying to at least associate him to some way, But she's the best example of this, of kind of. Basically, is she modern? Is she traditional?
She is.
She makes both,
she blurs the line.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And what I love about Ozu's movies is I think what he understood, especially for his time period, was the number one, the group where this social change was affecting the most was young women.
Yes.
Of her age, where it was, especially in Japan, and this kind of relates to the other force that was it's related to this too, is basically how marriage laws shifted Japan, and how that alone affected a lot of Ozu's movies. Because I think it's in 1951. Yeah, it's in 1951. After when Japan got taken over by the United States.
Yeah.
And it was a few years where basically the U.S. Douglas MacArthur was actually like writing their constitution and shit. And they got a woman to write like basically the women's laws and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
And after a lot of amendments and stuff, one of the basic law that came out of it was, quote, maintained marriage was explicitly based on the mutual consent of both sexes, and would be maintained through mutual cooperation with equal rights of husband and wife as a basis.
Yeah, I mean...
And that alone, if you think about it, is... You can even see the difference from how Noriko accepts her marriage in late spring versus how she chooses who she marries in early summer. Just 10 years. Yes. I think it's 10 years later.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably even get more in depth with this next week with Equinox Flower, because that's directly...
Exactly. That's even further. She's like... basically going all out against what her father wants.
He's saying out loud to other people that he's a supporter of this, but when it comes to him, when it affects himself, like he's a traditionalist, basically. Yeah.
That was kind of how I said about. That's like one example. Is there anything that comes to mind? I think Tokyo is another good example, just in general of. I think Blake mentioned this last week of how rapidly Tokyo changed just in a short year after World War II. But that impact had an impact on the Japanese family, right? And that's kind of what we see of, at least like, and one of the central examples to me is just how often Ozu shows trains going and coming, right? Because that's especially in that time period, that was the definition of modernization, right? You could get to places far away, and also, go make money in places far away, and way closer now.
Railroad tracks, kind of, especially like back in the day, were basically symbolic of. Civilization is reaching farther. Like where the railroads went, that's like where civilization, modern civilization.
But that's important though. Not because civilization's always existed.
But modern industrial civilization.
Exactly. And this relates to early summer specifically because I think it's David Bordwell in his book. He mentioned how Shishu Ryu, because he's the older brother, and Setsuko Hara, we see them both on the train. But we never see the old grandpa on the train. But he gets, or their dad. I called him the grandpa. I'm like, oh, wait, no, it's the stuff. But the dad, basically.
Yes.
We do see him, though. He sits on the side, and his peaceful moment is of him watching the train go by.
Okay, yeah.
Basically, those two are almost like they're in the moment of modernization, right? They're like in their in their adulthood, and he's kind of past that. He's in the later generation.
Yeah. It's past him, by the way. He has to watch. At this point, he's watching it. Yes,
exactly. And that's a theme in a lot of Ozu's movies, right? Where the older generation can just basically watch and see what happens, And we see that too, even in early summer with the family, especially the mother, just like disagreeing with who she wants to marry. You know, but she can't. She knows because of basic modernization, she can't do anything about it now. Where in the past, parents would have literally been able to stop their kids from marrying people. But that's I think we'll get more into this theme as we go through the movie specifically. We've already gone through a decent amount, but to go to the form part, which is my favorite part, is. Luke, I talked to you.
Oh, no, you formalist.
Okay, I'll take that.
I wanted to make that sound like an insult. Just so you find
all right, I'll take it.
You're a formalist. Okay, just go
on. But anyway, because I think Luke, I've talked to this about you, but probably both of you is, and I will definitely talk about this in future episodes. So it's kind of just a starting point for me. Is basically when I say the words presentation versus representation. Is there anything that comes to your mind, if any, when I say that?
Okay, you explained this to me the other week, and I already forgot but I feel there's different ways in terms of film. Like, I've seen that, explained that, just because something is shown doesn't mean the filmmaker endorses that, but I don't think that's, if something's morally wrong on screen, then the filmmaker doesn't endorse that. Doesn't mean that they endorse that.
Yes.
But you were what were you saying?
I'll say it's kind of related to that, but
I'll be more specific.
Yeah. So I'll explain it more, and then maybe maybe something will come to your head.
Yeah.
So let me read a Bresson quote first.
Okay.
And then I'll go from there. So this is like from his book of like aphorisms, basically.
Yes.
And he has one that's called On Fragmentation. And that's already kind of related to Ozu too. This is indispensable on fragmentation. This is indispensable if one does not want to fall into representation. To see beings and things in their separate parts, render them independent in order to give them a new dependence. And basically what he's saying there is, this is true for Bresson movies, and I think also definitely true with Ozu's movies is, when we show Ozu characters, we never see, even in the story itself, we don't see everything they're doing. We only see certain moments, you know? They're like huge parts, obviously, we don't even see.
Okay, yes.
You know? So basically, he's fragmenting, basically the narrative.
Basically,
you know?
okay. Are you saying like it's only in the moment, basically?
Yes.
Like there's no flashbacks?
That's a huge part of it. And so let me explain. So this isn't Monty Call, who's like basically the best at explaining this. In an interview I listened to him, he kind of explains this in depth, but I'll explain it. Basically, some of his highlights that he says is, so when I say when he talks about representation, basically you think of most films is a filmmaker has an idea of their head of what they want to show, right? Of some kind of meaning they want to show, or some kind of something they want to say, and then they think of the image, and then that's what they show, right? But the further you can lean into presentation, the other side is, how do I take none of my ideas initially out of it? Is literally how do I show just whatever's on screen, literally, like that's what's on screen, and then the idea should come after that, almost separate.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'm explaining that well, and that's why I said on future episodes I'll try to explain it better. But it's kind of this idea, you know, I kind of love is, and another great director at this is Tati.
Yeah. Okay. Wait.
And by that is if you think about Tati movie, and this is true with a lot of directors, where you would say they're good at creating their own world.
Yes.
And what that means is like they're not trying to show you like some other. It's almost like it's like a camera just facing its own universe. Yes. You know, where everything you see is like just literal.
Yes. Okay.
It's not trying to represent some idea already in the filmmaker's head.
Are you saying so that they're showing an image that then you spring ideas from, or like you're supposed to?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, you're supposed
to. So like, you know, when you watch an Ozu movie,
yeah,
you feel like you're watching real characters. That's what people say a lot, right?
Yes.
But part of that reality is because you're not seeing everything. Almost like you see in real life is you don't see. When you talk to most people, you don't see everything they do, right? Or everything about their real life. You only see certain moments of their real life, right? And you kind of have to, in your head, think about the rest of it.
Yes.
And that feels more real to some degree, right?
Okay.
In Ozu movies, that's the same thing. He never really tells you exactly what the characters are thinking. You have to...
Oh, you have to project it onto it. Yes.
And another version of this is, you see in a lot of versions where films where they're more presentational is, the way you see information is behaviorally.
Yeah.
As you get it through the character's actions, right? That's where you're learning what the character thinks or what they're doing, right? It's not by what they're saying. That's a huge part of. That's another thing. And Ozu movies, that's one of the central things. Is the dialogue is important, but another thing that's important is literally like how they, basically their facial reactions. You know, like part of it is even when Ozu decides to do close-ups, stuff like that. You know.
Yes. Okay.
So that's kind of like I just wanted to introduce the idea. And
it's definitely complex. It's hard to grasp.
It is, and I think Monty Call says Bresson is the best at it, but I think Ozu is like right there in terms of basically
not Tati.
Oh, and Tati's up there too.
Okay.
He is. It's almost like just being like the film is just the film. You know, it's not trying to be anything more. Almost. Okay. It's like the film is enough. You know.
Okay.
And another thing I think, especially I get this with the Ozu movies, is there are scenes where you believe it's really real, but at the same time, you have this kind of memory in your own head, you know, that you might associate it with.
Yes.
That almost has nothing to do with the film itself. Yes. But it's almost like Ozu's cutaway shots, you know, where they don't, like, the base has really doesn't have, like, a base on itself has nothing to do with that scene, but it kind of just makes sense, you know, when you see it.
Yes.
I don't know if I'll get better at explaining it, but I'm just getting.
You might be better if when we go through the movies, you like bring up examples.
Yes. It is more one of the main things, especially with Ozu, is And I'll say the one more thing about what Monty Call says is, and he says Eisenstein is actually kind of the opposite of this.
Okay.
Where Eisenstein's montage is basically what Eisenstein said was, when you have one shot, you add another shot, it equals a whole new thing, right?
Yes.
But basically what Monty Call says is, every shot should be its own thing, almost like a separate thing.
Okay.
And what he says is, instead of the gaps, it's the ellipse. Basically, it's the gaps or the ellipses that create the meaning. So in the late spring is the classic example of whenever we never see the wedding itself. Yes. You know, that's like the huge ellipsis in the movie. Okay. But that's like the major part, right? Like that's that's honestly the part that creates meaning for whatever happens next and what happens before. You know.
Yes. Okay.
But yeah, that's my formal part. That's like
just got a little confused.
No, it's like because it's true because that's probably what's gonna. This is true basically with all the directors I'm gonna pick next too. So, because it's something I've noticed that I like about a lot of the directors I like is, it's almost, I don't want to oversimplify it, but it's almost like putting the image first, you know, at least like having respect for the image, you know, before being like, I have something I want to show about
basically
myself
like
and stuff like that.
Not making, basically trying to take as much from. Not trying to take as much from other literary sources, trying to be just a film.
Yeah, that's part of it, right? Just seeing what film itself can do.
Okay. Well, you already started this off with Vertov, too, who kind of does the exact same thing.
Yes, exactly.
Except he's, like, messing with that himself also.
Yes. No, he definitely is. Like, see, but even then, with Vertov, and I still love Vertov, but he even has the more, like, he's still trying to have a message.
Yes. No, that's why I said he messes with that.
Okay.
Yeah, he does.
Okay,
but still, he's still more kind of maybe more abstract than people want to give him credit for.
Yeah.
Like, not straightforward.
But when you say message, are you saying like if a film like sets out to have some big message, that's like not that? Are you saying like people like Ozu, each image has its own message in a way, or
it's not even about it. That's the thing. It's not even about having a message per se.
Okay.
Like, you know how I mentioned last week where it's like or I read that Boardwalk Code. I'll read it again actually. Quote, instead of asking who the camera represents, we should ask how the framing functions and what effects it has. And functions don't necessarily create explicable meanings. Meaning is only one effect of form and style, and not always the most important.
Okay.
That last line is really important.
That actually makes more sense.
Meaning is only one effect of form and style, and not always the most important. But some people think, basically, a film is only important if it has meaning, right? Like, why am I watching this? You know?
Okay, yes.
Why does this have meaning?
Yes.
And it's like, when you're watching a Bresson film, that's why like the word rhythm is so important. It's like both Ozu and Bresson.
Yes.
Because you have to be in the experience of watching the movie itself to say this is why it's important to watch it. You know, it's not like this certain scene has a certain meaning.
Yes.
You know?
Okay. Yes.
Monty Calls puts it like when you can't even take like if you take a Bresson image in isolation, it almost doesn't make sense, right? Because you have to have like the rhythm of the film itself.
Yes.
For the whole, you know, to get basically for the film to make sense.
Yes.
That's kind of true with Ozu too. Even though Ozu's films his shots are just gorgeous. So.
I mean,
but that's the thing; they're gorgeous for itself.
Yes.
You know, they're not like sometimes you can barely relate to what they have related to the movie. You know, and you kind of have to draw your own associations if you want to. But yeah, that's the overall stuff I wanted to talk about this week. We can go into the movies now. We'll start with.
That's good.
Early summer. Is there anything specific you guys want to say about early summer before we go into it?
I mean, I kind of already said it, but like, I just love how chill this movie is, and I feel like it's probably might be his like chillest, at least talky movie.
It's chill until it's not.
Of course, there's emotional moments, but like.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
I think it's like watching the ones we watched last week.
Yeah.
Comparatively, it's like, oh, these are actually chiller.
Yeah. Sit back.
And that's why I'm saying it actually makes sense once you watch one Ozu. You have to watch it. It is like reading chapters in a book almost. You know, you have to watch one.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, I agree. Cause I'll be honest. I watched them in reverse order.
Like,
I watched Tokyo Twilight first because I wanted to watch the depressing one first.
Okay.
No, but I love early summer. This is, like I said, it's maybe my favorite one.
I mean, it's just a lot of fun too. Like, it's just like it kind of boils down to that.
It is.
It's like the relationship, especially the relationship between her and the other unmarried girl.
Yes, like it's like oh my God. A lot of it's like would it be bad to call it lighthearted? Because like obviously there's like still non-lighthearted moments, but like in a way, in certain parts of the movie, it's kind of lighthearted in a way. I feel like.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. Like with the friend character, definitely.
Yeah, like it's not even. I'm not saying that's a bad thing either. I'm just saying like, it's just a very interesting thing Ozu.
No, it's got its serious moment, but it's even lighthearted in terms of why she makes her decision in some ways. You know. Yes. Maybe not lighthearted is the right word for her decision, but it is more upbeat than maybe some of his other movies.
Yes.
And kind of on that track is like the first act is kind of just setting up the whole scene, basically all the characters. We get like literally 40 minutes of exposition. Bordeaux says it was 40 minutes. Like I remember being a long time. I don't remember exactly the amount of minutes, but basically getting introduced to all the characters. Like them having breakfast for the first time and everything it's kind of crazy, but it's like I said, it's like once you get into the rhythm of the Ozu movie, you kind of like just watching, like I said, this is what I love more about this movie, is getting to know all the characters.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think I said this a little earlier, is why I said in this one where I was calling the father the grandpa.
Yeah.
The reason why I think so is the kids are a little more important in this one.
Yes.
They actually have a major plot point too, when they run away and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like he's more of a grandpa in this one, but like I think in what was the other one where I kept calling him a dad, even though he was technically a grandpa.
Tokyo Story.
It might have been Tokyo Story.
Yeah, it was Tokyo.
Yeah, it was Tokyo Story. Yes, it was. Okay. I feel more justified calling him a grandpa in this one, just because the kids are more involved.
I mean, he's a grandpa in Tokyo Story.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so I mean, it's fine.
But
also Chishu the shapeshifter out here,
Dude, he looks insane in this movie.
Like he's the older brother.
Like, yeah, he's a
it's like he like got younger in 2 years,
and then got older again. It's hilarious. He's a shapeshifter, But like, didn't Ozu? That's a quality Ozu loved in Chishu, right? Because how Chishu was just like a guy who he's just so versatile. Basically, he can do whatever Ozu asks. Basically.
I remember. I think I said this a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
Ryu had that quote of Ozu taught me how to be an empty page.
Yes.
Yeah. No, he's honest. I like him in this one. He's more emotional in this one.
He is, dude.
And I think we'll get into it as we go through the movie.
He's kind of an asshole.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's part of it. Yeah, exactly. Because Ryu in the other two movies we watched last week, he's like the more
easygoing, like letting.
Well, he's the character that we get from the grandpa character in this one.
Yeah.
Of the more wise, understanding one.
Yes,
this is how life happens, kind of thing.
Yes.
And I think I mentioned this last week. Where I said there's usually one or two characters that are kind of, at least more aware of what's happening. They're more of a, like I said, they're more aware of just time and like I said, death last week. They just kind of more aware of it.
Yes.
And Ryu is in the last two movies. He's that character.
Yeah.
But in this movie this week, he's kind of the more emotional one.
Yes.
He's more of like what you would expect the fathers and the other ones to act like.
Yeah.
Honestly,
if they were more traditional.
Yes.
But that's what's funny. He's the older brother, and he's like the more traditional one. I think we can just go ahead and get started going through the movie. The movie starts with, honestly, I think my favorite Ozu opening shot, at least one of them, with the wave and the puppy walking by.
Okay.
I mean, pretty great one. It's pretty
floating
great.
weeds, honestly, is just like.
You're gonna have to remind me what the floating ones is.
The bottle and the lighthouse, and when he keeps farther back from the lighthouse, and he has there's a shot of the bottle and the lighthouse in the background.
Okay, yeah.
It's just ozone color too.
That's a pretty good one.
Okay,
maybe I spoke too soon. But this is a great one too.
It is a great, it's
a great one.
He doesn't have a bad opening shot or just bad shots in general. So,
but this basically opening of the movie is I kind of mentioned this earlier. We see this scene of Ryu going to leave for work on a train, and then Setsuko Hara also goes to work on a train, but she goes on a later train.
Yes.
So like I said, we see them both on the train. We kind of we get a scene with the grandpa and the kids and everything. But really, the scene I want to talk about next big was the scene with the restaurant scene with Setsuko Hara, her older brother Ryu, and then also his wife. They're all eating in the restaurant, and they're talking about kind of like they're more laid back about it, but they're kind of talking about this kind of tradition versus modernity issue I was talking about earlier is when he says like women nowadays like they don't have proper etiquette or something like that.
Yeah.
He says something like that. Yeah, he basically says, women don't have respect like they used to. The kind of the old school argument.
Yeah.
But she says she comes back and says basically men were impudent for too long. yeah, basically she gives the modern argument.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I love about Ozu is he kind of just leaves it there. And this is kind of the presentation thing I was saying.
Okay, yeah.
Right? He just leaves it there. He shows both sides.
He's not spoon-feeding you
Yes,
a certain
it's not,
side.
but he's not even taking one side. It's not like
Yeah.
Setsuko Ohara, she's the hero and she gets the close-ups and that's when the music rises when she says her line or something. You know, it's like, it's literally shot the same for everyone. You know?
I think that's
you
just...
could say Ozu actually is taking her side.
Yeah,
but there are people that say Ozu's actually taking his side.
Yeah, I know because a lot of people take Ozu like I've seen a lot of people say like Ozu's being harsh on like marriage and like they take all different like they think Ozu's different.
They'll take opposite sides.
Yes, but I was gonna say I think a lot of that is too as we talked about is objective camera like is an objective lens. I feel like that's a big
same thing with
Tati,
Tati, right?
Yeah, it's Tati, Altman. Like,
it's the same thing. That's one of this aspect of the presentation I'm talking about is kind of just. Like I said, the character's kind of an objective viewer in a new world almost, you know. But it's not objective because the world is created by the same person using the camera, you know. So
yes.
It's you know that's what kind of art. At least that's the process.
Yes.
But no, I kind of like their conversation too because it is like I said in this one, this is a more laid back movie, but it's the same themes, you know. But so it is more laid back.
Yes,
they're all kind of laughing about it while they're drinking.
Yes.
You know. But no, but this whole opening movie, this part takes 40 minutes until we get to kind of the first plot point of their uncle arriving.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think he must be like he looked a lot older.
Oh, he looks old. Yeah.
So I don't know how much. I don't think they
probably,
ever say.
Yeah, he's probably the grandpa's older brother, basically.
That's what I thought
he
too,
is,
yeah.
but I don't know how much older he is because they look a lot apart, even them two.
I mean, brothers can have a large age.
No, they can.
Yeah,
they can.
for sure.
No, but no, he's a funny guy.
Oh yeah.
And we get him. We get like basically the same kind of morning scene, but morning routine. But now he's kind of involved in it. And it's just like the kind of daily life stuff that Ozu is really great
I mean,
at.
that's the thing that makes you think it's a real life, like
exactly
because like even the kids have a part in it. They're like, can he actually hear us?
Yeah, that's
which is a great. That was probably my favorite joke.
When they're going to calling him like stupid.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Like that was probably my favorite joke in this part of the movie.
That's what I'm saying. The kids have their moment a few times
yeah.
in this. That's, they definitely get their shine. No, but my favorite scene with him is when he's talking to Noriko when they're talking in front of the Buddha statue.
Yes. Such a great shot, dude.
It's basically like sometimes Ozu will like foreshadow, but in the opposite way. So like in this time, he asked her basically. I think he's already asked her once, but he asked her a second time, like when she's gonna get married.
Yes.
When she asks if he has anyone rich for her to marry. And he basically doesn't say anything, but that kind of is basically the opposite of who she chooses.
Yeah.
Right? Because she ends up choosing someone who's less rich, and they're all kind of mad about it, basically. She didn't choose the guy with more money. But I just think it's like, Ozu does have, like, a lot of just classical film elements to him. Just, you know, he does have foreshadowing, but it's almost, like, opposite in some ways.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, would you, like, that would be, like, in late spring showing the married guy, and you think that she's going to be...
Yes.
That's kind of in the same vein, I feel like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yes, that's another example. But we get another play scene where the family goes and watches a play.
Yeah. Yes.
And there's actually a cool transition in this where I said, like, Ozu's transitions, you kind of have to pay attention, where they're watching the play.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to, like, a restaurant or something. I think it's a restaurant or it's her house, their friend's house. Because it cuts from the play to them listening on the radio to the play.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you just don't even see where they're at first, kind of. You just see the room almost. So you don't even know, like, you don't even know where you're at, and you kind of have to put it together yourself.
Yes.
But yeah, this is where we see kind of I think they've already talked to the friend once earlier, maybe.
This is the first time I remember the married friend being like a prominent part. I feel like. Yes, is that the friend you're talking about? The married friend or the non-married friend? Because they're both in this scene, I'm pretty sure, aren't they?
Yeah, they both are in it. The reason why I was confused is the married one is basically she's fighting with her husband, and that's why they're kind of making fun of her. I think they call her like Mrs. Carrot or something. I mean, I think that's
something like that. No, they have probably names.
Because the reason why her husband got mad is their dog chewed up their pipe, his like smoking pipe and stuff. This is I think it's like less maybe on the nose now than it maybe would have been back then, but like one of the signs of kind of like a modern life was having a dog in your house. Because like that's even true today, where like people in India, like when I go back, is like you can tell like people are almost shocked that you have a dog in your house. You know, that's like a sign of you're rich, basically.
What about
our upper class? What?
Are cats the same way?
I don't know. I'm more thinking of it with dogs specifically though, because you get like she does this later on too, where she's kind of making fun of Noriko, who she thought she was gonna marry. And she thought she was going to be like more westernized, where she's like, I thought you were going to have like a Coca-Cola, like, you know, you're in your I thought you were going to have a refrigerator and a white.
No, this is the funniest scene in the fucking movie. Like, maybe
we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll have to get to it. Yeah.
I mean, this scene is pretty funny too, where they're just making fun of it, where they're making fun of her until she leaves. Yeah. But yeah, that theme will come up later in terms of the two groups of married friends versus non-married friends. Yes. But no, the next big scene is basically this is actually one of my favorite cuts in the movie. Is it cuts from... Okay, yeah, so it's basically... Well, I kind of skip some moments, but... Because there's a scene where Noriko's boss shows Noriko a new prospect of who she could marry. Yes. And this is like the 40-year-old guy that's actually rich, you know, that's going to become a main character even though he's never in the movie. But it cuts from that scene to the music of the early summer theme song. That's the theme of this podcast.
Yes, sir.
And then it cuts to basically almost like a still shot. It's almost like it would be like in a Wes Anderson movie of basically all the family and like posing while they're like reading and stuff in their house. And like Noriko's off to the side, like reading a newspaper and stuff, but they're all like doing their own thing. In the same middle, and it's just like it's like a great moment just in itself, but it's also kind of sad knowing like. Basically, knowing what's going to happen in the movie, like, this is what they're losing.
She's going to... Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yes,
her decision's going to make this go away, basically.
Yes. Okay. Like, this is the foundation that's going to be broken apart.
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of just, like, that the sadness that comes with beauty and vice versa.
Yes.
You know, that I talked about last week. No, because there's a scene at the end, too, where, you know, she goes off and cries at the very end. That kind of reminds me of, you know, just... There's a lot of, like, Late Spring has the moment of the character alone crying.
Yeah, just tearing the apple.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
But in this one, it's like she's eating like basically her last dinner with her family together in that same spot.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
You know, and it's like we see this same spot a lot of the times in the movies, but he always shows it in different ways. And there's always different moods associated.
Well, see, that's why whenever you said this is a chill movie, I agree with you until it gets to points like that, because like, the family gives her the ice cold shoulder at the end of this movie, like after she chooses without like telling them anything.
Until this last scene,
until the last scene. No, they do accept it eventually, but I'm just saying, like, holy shit, there was just like. Frost coming off the ceilings, basically, in that fucking household towards her. So
because they know she's gonna have to move, basically.
Well, they know that, but they're also just offended because they're more traditional than she is, obviously.
But that's actually a question I was gonna bring up. Maybe I'll bring it up. I was gonna bring it up a little later, but I'll bring it up now. Is this decision of her choosing to marry, choosing basically the guy she chooses to marry? Is it a modern decision or is it a traditional decision?
What do you mean? I mean, I think
from what you said, it sounded modern, right? Because she's making a choice, right?
She's making the choice, and she's marrying someone that's a widower with a kid, which is a very modern thing to do. Like that's something that's the reason they're mad. That's part of the reason they're mad. Because first off, they didn't ask her. She didn't ask them if it was okay, basically, which is etiquette at the time.
That's true, yeah.
And then. Who she chose was someone that they considered someone lesser, basically.
Yes.
Like a widower that has a kid. Like you have to. That's a lot that you have to take care of. Basically, is what they think, and it's like too much for her, and she deserves better or something. I think the mom literally says that a few times. So,
but that's
why I said I think it's a modern choice.
But this is where I was saying where Noriko's kind of both. She's the definition of both. And basically, all at once is. There's also like, because if you remember. It's mentioned kind of a few times where he was like really good friends with their brother who died. I think, and died during the war.
Yeah,
their brothers. It's actually the brother has the same name as he does in Tokyo Story, and it's the same storyline too. Of it's almost we almost get the same dialogue too with the mother saying how she still thinks the chance that the brother could come back, and the father's like, no, he's gone. Like, just move on. It's basically the same thing, but it's not Shishiryu this time.
Yeah,
but the reason why I say this could be a conservative decision is, first of all, she's choosing to marry. She's almost staying more in the family than she would have been marrying this another guy, because she's marrying a neighbor who was basically best friend with the childhood friend.
Well, isn't he working with the dad or with her brother?
Yeah, a doctor.
They're both
he's a doctor.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
That
would be that's what you would think would be the more conservative decision, right? She's staying more close to the family, like literally marrying the profession that her dad is.
Yeah.
And the brother was really close to who she's marrying. And she in some ways, like I think what Rose says is she's trying to kind of basically keep as much as the post-war memory she has, and this is kind of because she even mentions a few times of like, I think they mentioned like the letter that he sent to her. No, that the brother sent to the friend during the war, and she asked for that letter. I don't know if you remember that scene.
I don't.
It's like when they're in the cafe together. It's a little later, but basically the point is, you can see it as a conservative decision of her choosing to marry this guy instead of the richer guy who could give her the modern life.
Yeah.
She's choosing to go back to live in the country in a provincial hospital instead of choosing money basically in a modern life. So that's why I think Noriko is more complicated than just...
No, she's definitely more complicated. But also the 40-year-old rich man is also someone that the traditional family would want you to choose too.
Yes, but
because they want her to choose him.
But remember the reason she gives is actually he sounds like more of a modern guy. Whereas the reason she's
I love her reasoning. For
her reason's like I can't trust a guy that hasn't been
that's 40 and a bachelor.
And a bachelor
compared to a guy that's 28 and has a kid already.
Yes, exactly. That's like another inverse of...
for sure.
What I'm kind of saying is, basically, Ozu is really good at showing humans as humans. They're not all just consistently traditional or all consistently modern,
We're complicated.
Yeah, they're making decisions based on whatever they face in the moment, a lot of times. But, that kind of got me off track, but that's one of the main themes of the movie, what I love about it is.
Oh, yeah.
But to get back to kind of where we were in the movie is... Basically, the next big scene I wanted to talk about is the four friends together.
Yes.
I love the music.
Yes.
I love the music. It starts when it shows them, but basically their whole conversation when they're talking about
basically warring, like trying to like explain why being single is better and why being married is better.
Yes, yes.
Just ending every phrase with
oh my god!
It's just so.
I can see why they would get annoyed.
This is so fucking annoying.
Is that a thing in like Japan or something? Like,
well, no, that's how. I mean, that's just like saying so, or like whatever they were saying in the thing.
I think right. They meant like it was like right, like
yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that right? Basically,
Okay. Yeah, this is hilarious.
But I can see why they would get annoyed.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, it was annoying as hell. But it was fucking funny.
It's not as true in this one, but it is true in Tokyo Twilight. And okay, I'll save it for Tokyo Twilight. Okay, I'll just save it.
I'll just save it.
In this one, because it's still related to the marriage, but in this one, basically the people that are married are saying you can't know what happiness is until you're married, almost.
Yeah.
And I love kind of the argument of the single friend where she's like, happiness, and she says like question like happiness is just a fun gamble, like the night before a getting all excited, dreaming of a winning bet the next day. And then she calls them happiness junkies, basically. Yeah. It's almost like, this is what I was saying, this is another example of Ozu just showing both sides without him really taking a side.
Yeah, it's just, he's kind of like poking fun at it.
Yeah.
Even though maybe slightly he's taking their side.
Yeah, he's being Tati here, he's showing the conflict, but just poking fun at it.
Exactly, yeah. No, that's good. That's all good.
Just want to bring up Tati every...
Okay.
That should be a mission.
I brought him first this time.
Honestly, yeah, like every episode I should have the goal of just bringing Tati up somehow. I need to
okay,
do that.
Okay, no. If you can do it organically, yes.
I mean, that's the point. That's the
try. All right. That's fair.
Anyway.
Okay, but basically, kind of, this is where we're kind of getting the whole. They're trying to get Noriko's approval, and this is just this is actually one of my favorite scenes where it's like more lighthearted. Is when Shishiryu's like hiding behind the doorway, trying to get his wife to get Noriko to agree to marriage and stuff, and she's like, "I can handle it. I can handle it." I just love that. It's honestly a great Shishirio jump scare the first time. Because there's no hint of him being behind that door the first time he opens it. So he just opens it randomly when Noriko leaves the room.
Yeah. No, I remember being like, what the fuck? He's there?
No, but this basically the second part of the movie is kind of just basically Noriko making a decision against her parents of maybe I'll just talk about that point. Is that the next big scene in the movie is where basically the mother calls herself a blabbermouth for and she's kind of right though, and basically because she's a blabbermouth, this whole scene happens of Noriko deciding to get married because the mother's the one that brings it up first. Is I always thought you would be a good match for my son. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, I'm down, basically.
Yeah, literally.
But think about it. She had never said that. Basically, I was just saying this marriage will never happen.
Well, and that would never happen if the brother didn't decide to send his friend off to, or send him off to the country.
That's not a big part of. Yes, exactly. Dude. Yes. And honestly, that's a big theme I think in terms of all of Ozu's movies of. Basically, something had to end for something new to start.
Yeah.
Right? And basically, literally, you couldn't have those two apart, like she says. Like, literally, he had to be going for me to realize that.
Yeah.
There was no separation of the two. And that's kind of, it's a hard thing to accept, but at the same time, like, that's why that's kind of what Ozu's, I think, is at least, that's what Ozu's trying to say. And there's just a lot of examples of that, but I think it's one of the best ones. But what I kind of love about this, though, is... Do you think he wants to marry her? I mean... Because do you remember his reaction when the mother... Because basically, when the mother tells him after she leaves.
No, yeah, I do remember his reaction because it wasn't, like, ecstatic. It was just kind of like he was like... I honestly took it for shock. I mean, yeah, like... Just because, like, I don't think he expected it.
Yeah, like... But... It might be just thing like he needed.
But who wouldn't be happy to marry Setsuko Haru?
I mean, yeah, that's it. But like
that's the thing. He doesn't look that happy.
He does.
But like, I mean, okay, but if someone, I feel like he didn't like her though. Also. If you're in Japan and your parent comes up to you and says that, what would your reaction be? Would you like you'd be like confused basically? Like it'd be a shock, and oftentimes shock cannot have the happiest like most ecstatic emotions because. It's uncertainty.
Yeah, he does just seem in shock more than anything. Yeah. Because, like, this is the thing, though. I realized it watching this earlier is the previous scene where he tells his mom that he has to go move to the country.
Yes.
He actually seems kind of excited about it. In terms of, like, basically... At least I interpreted it as he's excited to go be on his own, almost. Because he's like... Because she's saying, I don't want to leave Tokyo. And he has more... I'll say this. He's smiling more in that scene than he is in this scene. Yeah. But that could be just like what you're saying is it just almost isn't shock more than anything.
It might just be a thing he doesn't know he needs. Like he thinks he knows what's best for him, but really he needs someone. But only the people closest to him recognize that.
Okay, I just realized I did skip an important scene of the kids running away.
Okay, yeah, we can't. This scene's so good.
This is important for a lot of reasons, but I mean it's just important just because we get the it's an important scene with the kids, kind of like.
Also, he moves his camera.
Yeah.
Big thing in that.
Wait, with the bread? When he zooms onto the bread or what?
No, we're talking about when the kids are running away, right?
Yes.
When he moves the camera along with like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like the camera's like, they're not even. The camera's not really even tracking him. The camera almost feels like it's moving on its own in a way.
No, I was gonna say there's a few really good camera movements in this movie. There's a few great ones. Because actually, if you remember. So when he's moving with the kids in that scene where they're walking near the water, right?
Yes, the ocean.
The ocean. The way it cuts into the scene is the previous scene ends with the bread falling on the ground broken, and the camera tracks into it just moves into the bread the same way it's moving with the kids, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, and he moves it a few times like that too. But that bread shot I wanted to remember because I don't know if you remember in Tokyo Chorus. It's a very similar kind of moment with when they break the records.
Yeah.
And the records fall, and it ends the scene with the broken records on the ground.
Okay.
It's almost the same kind of thing too.
Is he saying something with that, or do you think like?
That's what he's not saying anything directly about it, but I mean he might be referencing.
Is there a reference? Like, is he associating them two together?
The way I see it is just like kind of just what kids do almost, or at least. it's a good image in my head to show that kind of feeling of Ozu's feeling of the relationship between kids and fathers, almost. Okay. You know, especially in those two scenes of basically the kids not knowing what the parents are struggling with, and that's why they're fighting. You know, they don't know really why they're.
Yes, they're in their own world.
Yeah, they're in their world, but they're not. They're just mad their dad can't buy them train tracks. They don't understand why the dad can't buy them train tracks, right? And the dad almost takes their anger out on them. You know. No, but yeah, that seems important too, because Bordwell points this out. I don't know if I directly would agree with him, but I can kind of see it as he thinks that because this is a scene where Ozu never shows, but the scene with them running away, the kids running away, is actually the scene where Noriko goes and gets this guy, what's his name in the movie, the guy she marries, basically.
Yeah, okay.
I'll just call her husband. She goes and gets her husband to go search for him. But they never show all that stuff is off. It's off screen. But he thinks maybe that's when she decided, when they're kind of searching.
Okay.
Okay. Definitely. I mean, it's possible.
Because she already knows he's moving at that point too.
Yeah. But
that's why I say that seems important coming before this one too, because that happens after too, where basically they agree for the marriage and everything I said earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know. Basically. Let's see. I've been talking too much.
I've been talking too much.
I don't want to. Yeah, because there is a lot of narratives. I guess
we have to mention the balloon scene.
Yeah, we should mention the balloon scene because
it's one of the most beautiful.
It's the music. It's the reason why I chose the picture from
the mascot. It's the mascot
and the music from the podcast.
I mean, it's one of the best scenes in Ozu's career. Like one of my favorite Ozu scenes. Like just. The fact that just they're talking and then she goes, "Oh, look, there's a balloon." Just like he's focusing on the balloon just floating in there. Just the image of the balloon floating in the air, the music with it. It's so beautiful. And then he like cuts away from it and then he just cuts back to it.
Yeah, he cuts to it twice.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, dude, it's just so good. Like, this is what I was saying, especially with the grandpa. We've had similar conversations in the last movies we watched too.
Yes.
But it's just kind of just like the grandma is a little more in terms of like. And she wants the son to come back. Basically, she says something like, things could be a little bit better," and he's like, "No, don't get greedy." You know?
Yeah, and like I guess I could say like the balloons like represent like freedom or something, like, or just like away from like life, basically, in a way. Like it's freely floating in the air, and maybe he's like talking about that with the son in a way, being separated from his parents, or maybe, I don't know.
See,
maybe we'll get into it, but.
To me, the reason why I love this scene so much, and I kind of said this earlier, is it's why I love like this whole idea of presentation. Is when they're watching the balloons. So basically, they look up, they see the balloon, and then they have the memory of their child that also lost a balloon one day.
Yeah.
Okay,
and then he cuts back to the balloon. But now it has a new meaning associated with the memory they had.
Yes. Okay.
But originally it started with this balloon they just randomly saw. Yeah. And almost Ozu's movies can feel like that, right? It's like almost a whole separate world. But then once you have your own association, own memories, you almost bring your own context to it.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Your own meaning to it. And that's what it means by there's not meaning trying to already be presented or represented, right?
Yes.
There's a presentation first, that balloon, and then you have the memory of your son when he lost his balloon one day.
Okay, yeah.
Because remember, he says something like, "I wonder whose kid lost their balloon," or some kid is out there sad, and then the mom is like, "Remember when our son also lost his balloon one day?"
Damn.
And it's like it's not direct, it's not a direct like narrative like this happened because this happened.
Yes.
But it still feels like in some way it did happen because, I mean, first of all, Ozu wrote it, but but you can see that still feel like that could happen that could happen to you at any time, right?
Yeah.
Or you could associate a memory just with an object.
Oh, yes, yes.
And that's why Ozu loves just everyday. He makes everyday objects look amazing, like you said in Floating Weeds, just with the bottle.
Yes.
He's
honestly poking fun. Like yeah.
But he's also making it look, like a piece of art too.
Yes. I mean, he's bringing you both sides of the coin,
But honestly, to not go through too much detail, we'll just go to the ending. Basically, they're their last scene together. But more importantly, the scene I really want to talk about is the best camera movement in Ozu is maybe not the best, but one of the best. Is the camera move? It's an Ozu crane shot of when her and her sister-in-law are walking on the sand together on the beach.
Yes.
And why this is so crazy is Borbell makes this a good point of, because normally when you think of a crane shot, you think of it as a high angle shot, right?
Yes.
It's above the characters, so
yes.
it's almost at an angle. But this crane shot still keeps the Ozu straight line, which he points out is as he says it makes it look like you're watching the Earth rotate as the camera still, because you're still at straight line distance with the characters,
yes.
but it's still a crane shot moving up.
Because
they're walking.
I would need to rewatch this.
No, it's crazy because it still obeys the Ozu rule of he's lowered than what he's framing.
Yes.
But it's a crane shot.
Dang.
And apparently it took him 3 days to film.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Man.
No, that's also crazy because it looks so simple too. You're like, they're just filming some women on the sand, but it's like
I would kill to watch Ozu direct behind the scenes. Like just watching him go to work. I'm just interested in like just how he would do it. Like just how he like sets everything up.
No, I agree.
It must be really interesting.
No, I agree. No, but more to go back to the scene. Like the scene is also important in terms of kind of Noriko. This is really maybe the closest we get to her own thoughts. And I thought I think the scene is important for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons I like the most is it's almost like Ozu is saying like she kind of has to get as far away as possible from the house to kind of have these thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, to basically almost.
I mean, yeah, that's
to move on almost.
That's with everyone though. Like,
yeah,
when you're like, I guess living with your parents, like when you move away, you get a whole new perspective on them and on just like life in general, basically.
Exactly, dude.
Yes.
But yeah, this is like literally a version of that, right? They're literally, you can hear the waves. You know, like they're just basically far away from the house.
Yes.
And and in my mind, it's like she has this conversation with the person she can trust the most, which is that sister-in-law.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe because she's been through a similar experience and stuff. But and I kind of she kind of says like I said, I remember when she says earlier when she's joking about she wants to marry a rich person, and this one she says I really don't care about money. You know, I just want to marry someone I can trust. Basically, what she comes down to.
Yes.
But yeah, that's basically all I wanted to say about the movie.
I mean, there's the family portrait too.
Yeah.
At the very end. Great. Yeah.
And you brought this up in like a previous episode, but you don't see the actual portrait though.
No, yeah, you never see the pictures. You only see them taking it.
Yes.
Well, it's the photo though. I mean, you don't see it after they snap the shot, but I mean, like you do see it because why I love the shot because he shows it from the perspective of the actual photographer, and then he pulls back to his perspective where he is, and just filming like the photographer, and then the.
But would that be like an example of presentation versus representation? Like, I don't know.
Maybe not directly, but okay. Explain it more if you're
like he's not. I was thinking like in the ways like he's not like he's staying in the moment in a way.
I think that's definitely a big part of it. What I'm trying to say is, or that part of this whole presentation thing. But I think that is part of it. Just taking the picture but never showing it. Never showing. Basically, never even when he shows a memory, he never shows a picture of a memory or something. Yes. We're talking about or anything.
Yes.
But the last moments of the movie is kind of she's already. This is actually another example of the balloon scene. Is the last scene of the movie is when the parents are watching a different marriage procession outside their window.
Yes.
And she kind of asks the same question as I wonder what Noriko's first she asks is I wonder what that woman's family what she's marrying into basically. Yeah. And then she's like I wonder how Noriko's doing. Yes. And it's kind of like basically that's kind of how memory works a lot of times. We just see something that associates something with our memory and that's how the memory pops up in the first place.
Same with the balloon scene
exactly. Yes. Exactly. But is there anything else you guys wanted to say?
It ends with just a shot of the village, right?
Yeah, it ends with in the grass. Yeah, in the grass in the village.
Have we talked about like was there like a specific rhyme or reason for Ozu naming each of Ozu's titles? Because obviously this one's early summer. Did he just like kind of just name them after seasons or whatever? Like, was there like a specific?
Actually, I should say I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot when I was saying this earlier. Actually, the technical title for this movie in Japanese was called The Barley Harvest Season, and that's why that ending would make way more sense.
Yeah, no, it does make more sense.
And it's also the song you hear singing with the kids. Apparently, that was like a famous barley harvest festival song or something, and that's how at least Japanese people would know that's what he's referencing.
Yeah.
So. I guess they called it early summer and for the American title or something. So, no, I'm glad you said that.
Okay.
Yeah, barley harvest season. That's another title for the movie. Or I guess
doesn't quite roll off the tongue as much as like early summer.
No.
Like barley harvest season. We're not gonna.
But I guess that technically is early summer.
Yeah, it's probably just early summer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It probably means the same thing.
Is late spring kind of the same way, or like do you know? Or
late spring. I don't know if we actually mentioned it specifically, but late spring was supposed to be it was supposed to represent just her being late to get married.
Oh, okay.
So she's late spring.
That does make sense.
Before the early, and this is
late offspring in a way too, kind of like. Yeah,
okay,
it makes sense in my head. It makes sense in my head.
That's like more like literal, but yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, next week we're talking about. I definitely get the title. I mean,
Tokyo Twilight is even like just. The name itself means like darker. It sounds darker than usual.
A lot of this movie is Tokyo at night. Too.
Yes,
it's a big part of the movie. Like, and it's a reason why. Like,
yes.
Like, of course, the themes are darker, but also just his lighting and his cinematic. It's darker than usual.
No, that's good. That's a really important point because this is definitely. Bordeaux mentions a couple movies, but I think they were in terms of his more of his silent. At least in terms of his later movies. This is by far his darkest movie.
Yes.
And it's almost amazing. Like, you can kind of see, like, definitely some of the Dragnet Girl aspects in this one. With the almost, basically noir lighting, with so many shadows. Like, Borwell pointed out that in basically almost all the scenes where the action takes place, it's either at night or it's in a dark room.
Bro, this is the first Ozu movie where I was like, I wanted to see it in color, honestly, because I
actually don't think.
Because both black and white movies, I actually just want them to be black and white because that's what they were supposed to be.
Like this one.
Yes.
I don't know.
But there's that moment where she's walking down, or where they're walking down the neon lit roads, and they're not neon lit because you can't see what it actually looks like. It looks fucking amazing still, but I was just like, I wonder what the colors actually look like at the time.
But I feel like that's different than the movie should be in color, though. The movie shouldn't be in color.
That's shot right there.
This is like the one movie that should be black and white. Because
it's dark.
Just the themes of it is like...
it feels like a New Orleans.
I was going to mention some things about the movie before we get into the details. Borwell mentions that this was Ozu's most melodramatic movie. Or how this was basically... Melodrama was the dominant of this... basically the dominant of this...
I can see that, yeah.
And Ozu... He basically... Because Ozu made this film in a... Let me see if I can find the name of it. But apparently... Okay, yeah. They were called Taiyozoku movies. Sun Tribe movies or youth movies at the time. Was Tokyo Twilight 50s?
57.
57, yeah. So in the 50s, these youth movies were being made. About kind of, more serious youth themes. Like we're going to get into with the Tokyo Twilight obviously has. And so Ozu was starting to get criticisms of being an old school kind of director. He didn't deal with modern times. Yeah. So he wanted to make this kind of movie. Yeah. But he basically his quote is funny. I'll just read his quote. He said, "So Ozu reflected on the problem of lowering the emotional temperature. Quote: Whenever I try to handle that high of volume, somehow vibrations always appear. Possibly my octave was too low. It should have been higher." So he basically said, even for how melodramatic this movie is, like, he thought he was kind of still too upbeat about it for basically what the material was asking for. Okay. So let me ask you, do you guys agree with that?
What do you mean by upbeat?
Like he's saying, even though this is melodramatic, he's saying he wasn't. He basically should have been at a higher melodramatic.
Should have been more melodramatic.
Yes.
I think it was. I mean, this is like one of my favorite movies of all time. So I think it's
because to me, I kind of disagree with him because I think it's so perfect with the themes. The themes are so dark.
Yeah,
and even the film itself is so dark, but it still has moments of like the music is still kind of just on the same level. The camera's still on the same level. There's still certain moments of just Ozu in general, Yes. But I do think it is like his definitely his most melodramatic, darkest movie at the same time.
Yes,
it is one. It's up there, yeah, for sure.
Like, do you think there's other ones like?
I was just saying that because I haven't thought about it enough.
Okay,
but just to cover my back basically. But yeah,
and maybe it's more of just like I don't know.
It's just one of his more sadder emotional movies because it's part of why it's my favorite Ozu is it just moves me the most out of all of them. Like I cry at the end of this movie every time.
Okay. See, okay, this is where I kind of agree and I kind of disagree. I think it is in some ways it is his saddest and emotional, but all of his movies you could say that about.
Yeah.
But to me, it's maybe his most saddest and emotional without offering that counterbalance.
Okay, that's actually a good way.
Of some kind of positivity throughout the movie.
Yes,
or,
yes.
maybe
there's no
there's not even a hopeful shot of trees that you're like, oh shit, okay.
Especially with the ending, because I mean, should I just go and say the end? Of course, she dies.
Yeah.
In a way, in a typical Ozu movie, she would be the one being married off, through her struggles. She gets married, but then Ozu basically ending on the death is basically it's kind of just counteracting that.
Yeah.
Of course, there's still I guess the one bit of hope is Suzuka saying she's going to go back and try to fix her family, basically.
No, that's yeah.
But even
there are moments of little levity, just in terms of there's a new life in this family, regardless of what's happening.
Yeah. But no one
because she has a baby. I mean,
that's kind of the underlying theme of the movie is what does it take to raise a baby in modern Japan?
Yeah,
based on I said earlier about the family.
Yes,
because this is true all around the world, but the family unit for most of humanity was based on a certain mode of living.
Yeah.
And now with modernization changing the way most people lived, how could you raise a family, basically?
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this movie, watching it this time. Because Ozu, apparently, Bordwell said that Ozu made the claim that this film was about Shishiryu's character, their father.
Okay.
But you wouldn't think of that on the surface, right? Because he is actually a secondary character in the two. You could say the two. Akiko is definitely the main lead of. Of basically her pregnancy and her abortion and everything.
Yes.
But also Setsuko Ohara, the older sister, and her kind of leaving.
Yeah, it's about sort of their relationship too.
But but I want to ask you guys is why do you think Ozu said that then? That this is basically a movie about him.
I mean, maybe it just boils down as simple as he's the father. I mean, the father is kind of the rock of the household. Maybe I'm trying to think.
And I think maybe he meant halfway of not only him, but maybe this theme is really about the mother that's missing too.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Right?
Yeah. What a missing mother does basically. Childhood trauma basically.
Yeah. Missing mother. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it kind of is about Shishiryō because he is trying to maybe not trying to show, but kind of trying to show how just a single father, this can kind of this is kind of where your child can lead.
Yes.
Like you said, I mean, not Noriko, I call her Noriko. Setsuko Ohara in this movie says she never had a mother's love, so that is a huge thing. But Shishiryō has big moments in this movie of him saying I tried to give her everything because I knew what she was missing, basically. Yeah. So I can definitely see on some levels why this would be about Shishiryu's character.
Basically about him and what he couldn't provide her.
Yes, but a lot of these movies are about Shishiryu's character, just of how, because Ozu, I feel definitely understands the male perspective more because he's a man. So he can more easily put himself into the perspective of if I was a father and my children were like this, how would I react? And he's trying to kind of, at least in some movies, maybe not. I mean, he does have the objective lens and everything, but his father characters are acting in a way I feel he wants father characters to act. That, yes.
That's they're the more, especially in the
later, they're the more
later
understanding.
Ones for sure.
Yeah,
they're the more understanding ones.
The more accepting of who their daughters are.
Yes.
And he is in this movie too. He does accept her, but it's just this movie. It's their family's so broken, but at the same time, which.
And you kind of saying all that just made me in my head think of. I think another reason he said that was Shishiryō doesn't only represent an individual father, but also kind of just the feeling of basically older men, how they felt about modernization, what they could provide for their kids.
Losing control.
Losing control of this is all I can provide. That kind of helplessness.
Yeah.
I'm a father that traditionally you're supposed to be able to provide for your kid. for your daughters to not, basically have them do what they're doing,
Yes, but the older they go...
He has to admit his shortcomings,
Yeah,
that's
the older your children go, the more, the less the grip you have on them, basically. Yeah.
And basically, I guess another thing I want to talk about before we get it specifically is, and this is kind of related to Shishirio, but I think it's true about the other two main males in the movie. And I think this kind of relates to the whole modernization of males at this time. Is I forgot what essay it was, but I read apparently Ozu basically never has in his movies characters where we see a main character anyway with the male being basically from 27 to 35, that kind of age range. Basically, he never has male leads like at that age range. They're usually older males.
Yeah.
And that's also true in this one. But also, I think in a lot of ways, this movie is about those male leads. Because
for sure.
If you think about it, the first introduction we get, I guess we can kind of go into the movie too, is the first introduction we get to Setsuko Hara is she's left her husband because her husband is basically being a dick, basically. Actually, the first time we hear about the husband is when Shishiryu's in the bar, and the bartender's like, yeah, her husband was here with 2 students last night. And that's how we learn who her husband is. But basically, he's one of the guys I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But the other guy is the guy that's running away from Akiko the whole time. Basically, the whole movie. Ken. Ken Kichi. Yeah, Ken. But yeah, no, so that's actually another good point. They call him Ken, too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But basically, those two guys of basically either not wanting to have responsibility of the family, basically running away from it,
or not being able to withhold the pressure.
Yes. Because the older guy is a professor, or her husband is a professor, and he even says to Shishirio at one point in the movie, he says something like, having kids is like just an animal instinct, basically. Like basically kind of trying to, at least showing maybe what the negative sides of modernization could do is just seeing, the family's traditional.
And I feel like more with the younger guy, it's more a maturity issue. Like he's not old enough to understand the real repercussions of the world.
No, they're both like different aspects of the same thing. And it's almost like both daughters are facing similar kind of issues in their own way.
Yeah.
Well, and see, like even the Ken, or even the younger like Ken character, like that's a character where, just in human history, characters that age that have like a certain amount of power or like a certain amount of freedom were able to get away with just shit like this. Like if they knocked someone up, it was it was no big deal, or like literally basically like no big deal. Like it was just something they did. Like that. I mean, that's one of the things we mentioned. Like the Tale of Princess Kaguya. Like whenever one of the like guys comes up and like is trying to get her hand and almost wins it, but her mom knocks down, or like whenever he knocks down the thing, her mom's there saying like, how many flowers have you like deflowered, basically, or whatever, or like how many women have you left like this. So it's like, it's kind of looking back at like, this is even something where modernization might be a good thing, about like they can't really get away with stuff like this anymore without no repercussions at all.
Yes.
But at the same time, he also doesn't care that much. So.
And does he get away with it?
I mean, technically, but not without a lot of emotional scarring. So
he definitely has the guilt, but like
he does. Yeah. No, but I think I definitely agree with what you're saying. Because I mean, that's kind of how the end of the movie too, with her deciding to go back. You could see it as, I don't know, do you guys see that ending of we're all going to the ending, but do you guys see that ending as hopeful of her deciding to go back to the husband? Because she says, I want to raise my baby, not the same with the mother and father.
I mean,
it never comes to the resolution of, normally you would get the scene of the husband being like, I've decided to be a better person, we're going to do better now, and that's when she decides to go back. But no, we never get that scene. It's just her deciding to go back.
Yeah.
And he hasn't changed at all.
No, well,
it's somewhat hopeful. It's somewhat hopeful. But there's still like a...
I don't know if I would even say somewhat hopeful. I would just say she's like kind of resigned herself to the fact that she's going to try this at least one more time.
Okay, that's good.
Because she doesn't sound very hopeful about it whenever she's telling her dad, I feel like, or whenever she's telling Chishiru. But because it's like a somber scene still, where it's like not this happy scene of her going like, I'm gonna go give it another shot. She's like,
gonna skip on over there.
She's like, I'm gonna. gonna go because I feel like it's what my daughter needs.
That's kind of what I'm saying, though. Yeah, right. It's like
it's not. She's sacrificing what she thinks is best for her daughter, for what she thinks her daughter needs. Yes. So,
yes. I think that's kind of what that's a good way to put it. Is with these two guys I mentioned, they're not willing to make that sacrifice, and in some ways, maybe that's what Ozu is saying. Is modernization is saying you don't necessarily have to make that sacrifice, and even for people that's too late. Like, I mean, not too late, but. Because obviously the professor's still doing it, but it just basically the consequence that comes with that kind of freedom almost.
Yeah.
Yes. But we'll go into the movie. I just kind of have some key scenes I want to talk about. Yes. Basically, we've kind of talked about earlier. When Shishiru gets introduced to both Setsuko Hara, who's run away from her husband, and then also Kiko. Who's basically she's kind of introduced as a troublemaker, which is also different in an Ozu movie because usually the daughter is a really well behaved, kind of the ideal daughter the father would want for the most part.
Yes.
Like you're seeing Noriko in early summer.
Yes.
And that's already what makes this.
I also want to bring up what's interesting about this movie is Setsuko Hara's character is like it's a different perspective on Ozu's the daughter getting married off because it's Ozu's showing the bad side of it when he usually shows it forming. He's showing it falling apart in this movie. It's a different perspective on something he usually shows
with the older daughter
with Setsuko Hara.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because
it's something I've always
Ryu even says that's a really good point because it's almost like in your own way if you want to connect the movies. This could be like Ryu apologizing to her Noriko in Late Spring or something.
Yes.
Because she says something like, he says something to her like, "I know you wanted to marry someone else, but I made you marry her.
Yes.
I made you marry him because he was a better family or something."
Yeah, it's like the antithesis of what like Ozu in Late Spring is saying. Like this is something that's inevitable, but then Tokyo Twilight, he's like, but that inevitably can lead to this. Basically, there's downsides to it.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, that's a really good point. It's like just because something is inevitable doesn't mean it's good.
Yes.
Doesn't mean it's bad either. Because she even tries to. This is another scene towards the end too. But I kind of like how we're just going over all of it. It's better anyway. But it's a scene with in the end when Setsuko Hara is trying to basically once you know that Akiko's going to die, to me it seems like she's telling her. Basically trying to give the normal Ozu speech of this is why you should live, this is why you should move on.
Yes.
And normally that's when the character does just move on to the next chapter. And that's what kind of makes this Ozu movie so much different, knowing that she's going to die in this one. Is she says something to her like, and this is what I was going to mention earlier in terms of with a lot of Ozu's characters in marriage, is where you'll get a character, because this is true in Late Spring and in this one, where the characters either run away from their husband or they're divorced or something. And Late Spring, it's the divorced friend. And this one, it's Setsuko Hara run away from her husband. That's obviously a bad marriage.
Yes.
But they're still trying to convince the main character to get married and how marriage is always good and that you should do it, And in some degree, they have a point, but to some degree, it's like almost like just paradoxical.
Yeah,
and she's trying to. She even says something like, For me, it was just an exception. For you, it's just like you have the whole world in front of you. You should do it, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And it's kind of that idea of just like, honestly, I don't even know why.
Well, that's just another interesting point that I love that Ozu put in of her saying like, where I'm the exception because obviously once divorces were legal. That's not the exception. Like that's changed a lot. Like obviously, like divorce rates have fucking skyrocketed across the planet because
it's legal.
Because it's legal. Like that's not the exception. And I think like Ozu obviously, I feel like knew that. I mean, like I feel like everyone. I feel like everyone knows this. Like there are unhappy marriages. Everyone knows this. But it's just like, I guess, I mean, before you literally just weren't allowed to get divorced without a specific reason. Or like an actual reason.
Or if you had power, basically, or something. Or one side of the...
Or the man would just put his wife in a mental hospital and go get married again.
Or he would frame her for murder, like in divorce Italian style.
Wait, who's the...
Okay, let's not...
Marcel Mastroianni stars in it.
Who's the director?
I don't remember the director, honestly.
Oh, that sounds interesting, though.
It's a funny movie. It's hilarious. It's pretty funny. Especially if you see the poster, but...
Okay, I should talk about maybe the next big, because I haven't talked about the mother yet. Maybe that's the big next character we introduce.
Yes,
kind of just basically the mahjong parlor, kind of basically. This is in some ways where we get the most melodramatic aspects of Ozu, because the first scene where he introduces the mother to her, Akiko kind of talks to her. You know, it's still filmed the Ozu way, but...
She's, like, rejecting all of her advances, basically.
But when she doesn't know, it's her mom.
Yeah, but, like, she's still... she's like, come sit here or whatever, and she's just, like,
trying to ignore her, like, no, because... Remember, because the scene after, when she's talking to her older sister, Setsuko Hara, after, she says something like... she felt like she could have been my mother.
Yes.
And that's something that happened like in a melodrama, you know.
But you see, I love Setsuko Hara's face because you can see her slowly realizing.
She's like, it could be or something.
Yeah, which is just another great example of Ozu basically acting with or directing with facial expressions. Like, really well, good.
No, dude, and honestly, her facial expressions in regards to her mother is some of the stuff I'll remember the most with the movie.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
because. To just skip ahead to the end again, is basically the way we find out Akiko dies. Because honestly, it is kind of sad. So first of all, let me ask you the question: do you think she actually commits suicide?
This is the it's definitely unambiguous.
Because like when he's writing about it, he just says like he just kind of just mentions like it's obvious that she commits suicide. But then watching it again this time, I was like... Because the train conductor says something, where he says something like, there's a lot of wrecks in this area because of the way...
It's the Devil's Rail, or it's the Devil's Crossing, I think is what he says.
And he says something like... And then he says something later where the cross guard forgot to put the...
No, he was peeing. Down. He was peeing.
Yes,
no, I remember this specifically, because I'm surprised that he would say it was obviously a suicide. I mean, that was something that crossed my mind whenever I was watching it.
He didn't say obviously, but the way he was talking about it was just like, it was just assumed like it was a suicide.
Well, because like, I mean, I could see it being a suicide because she was drunk as hell. So like, people do stupid
and just
shit.
Think about the scene that just happened. She just slaps Ken like multiple times and doesn't even say anything after he's like, basically obviously lying to her about, obviously looking for her and something.
Yeah.
But because I don't know if she is committing suicide, because I did think about it.
I don't know if she is either, honestly.
But then, because she does wake up for a little bit when her family comes to visit her.
Yeah.
And that's the scene where she's like, I still want to live, I want to move on.
But at the same time, when people commit suicide, studies have shown that, like, say like someone jumps off a bridge. As soon as they jump off the bridge, they realize that they don't want to do it anymore. Yes, and
they'll say that.
So that could be that, too.
No, exactly. There's no direct...
I don't think it really matters at the end. I think that's kind of what he's trying to say in a way. Like,
because she still died.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether she commits suicide or not. Like, there's no difference.
It doesn't matter because the system failed her regardless.
Yes.
I
really honestly. And that's why I think Ozu... That's kind of what I was saying earlier. That's why I think Ozu is saying she should reuse the central character of the movie. Because he's supposed to represent that kind of system that failed them almost.
Yeah.
Yes,
as the father, but also as kind of this promise that Japan had towards the citizens of modernization that kind of failed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a lot of Japanese movies about this in their own ways. But
you were saying, though, before we got into this, but you were saying the way he reveals her death is that Setsuko Hara comes and talks to...
because you think she's going to live.
Yes.
It's like, this is in a normal movie, she would live.
Yeah.
That's when she would be like, I want to live still, and then they would move on.
This scene is so good.
But then it cuts to Setsuko Hara, like, getting out of her car, walking to the mahjong parlor again. And then just close-up of her face being like, what does she say exactly?
Well, you already know something bad's happened because she's dressed in black, too, so...
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true.
I just remember, like...
No, but the music... But what I noticed is the music is the same. It's that same theme of the mahjong parlor music, too. But yeah, she walks up and she basically... I know I wrote the quote down somewhere, but basically it's like, it's your fault that she...
She says it's your fault.
Well, because before...
Said she died and it's your fault or something.
Well, because before, Setsuko Hara went to the mahjong parlor and told her mother... don't tell Miki. Is it her name?
Akiko.
Akiko.
Yeah.
Don't tell Akiko that you're her mother. It's just gonna do more damage than you've already done, basically.
Yeah, we've kind of skipped over. Yeah, the mother. Yes, Setsuko Hara telling the mother that for the first time.
Yes.
Akiko still finding out by going to the mahjong parlor a different time.
Yes.
And so she kind of finds out her own.
Yes.
And then because this is an important thing of Akiko doesn't want to believe that she is Shishiryu's daughter.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that kind of goes with this theme I was talking about too of the system that's failed the daughter. She doesn't want to believe that she's part of this kind of Japan, as I'm saying. You know, as I'm kind of saying.
Yes.
Well, and she's sad about it. Like, she wants to be more like her father. At least to me, and at least when I first watched, because this is the first time I've seen it, I was watching it, and everything she was saying to her mom is like, she has that foul blood of her mom in her, and there's no way that she could be as good as her dad, basically, is what it sounds like she's saying. Almost.
Yes.
Like, she still admires her dad, but she feels like, I don't know, like, she...
No, but I think they're more similar, especially, I think Ozu was saying, and they're more similar in a lot of ways, but the way he shows it specifically in the film is she's kind of obsessed with going to the mahjong parlor and kind of gambling.
Yeah.
But he also goes to the game.
He goes to the pachinko machines, dude. Oh my god, yeah.
Exactly. And maybe that's just like a kind of light way of showing their similarities.
Yeah.
You know, because it's when he says it when he tells his assistants that he's going. He's like, "I'm going to my usual place" or something.
Just tell him I'm in my regular place.
Yeah, and they all laugh. And then when he's like at a pachinko, is it parlor? Yeah. It's just funny too because that's when he runs into his friend also. But or
the uncle or not the uncle, but I guess their uncle, but the brother-in-law, right?
No, he runs into his friend where they're having like a family friend reunion.
I thought it was the brother-in-law where he comes and tells him that they gave her $5,000.
Is it that brother-in-law? Is it his brother-in-law?
Yeah, because that's their aunt. The aunt gives her $5,000 for the abortion, but they don't. No. Not that one.
No, the aunt doesn't give her $5,000.
But then the guy does though.
No, because that's their family friend.
Oh, I thought it was the aunt's husband for some reason. No, they just told different stories or something. But
because he says something like, it's kind of funny. It's like it's kind of a dick move because the way he does it is first he walks up to Shishiru. He's like, "Oh, I didn't know you'd be here," and maybe implying that he's probably there all the time. So he probably didn't know he was going to be there. Because the first question he asks him is, "Can you?" He first tells him about the kind of class reunion they're having, and he's like, "Oh, can you invite all the guests for me? I'm going on a business trip." And basically pawning off all this work on him, even though he just found out about the reunion.
Yeah.
And the reason he's able to do that is because then he's like, "Oh yeah, I gave your daughter $5,000 or 5,000 yen," without Shishiru even knowing about it. And it's almost like it's just a way to get him to do the work, just by like, "Oh, because I gave your daughter 5,000 yen." That's how I took it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. But basically, Shishiru is really embarrassed by that scene because like this is like the second time he's found out his daughter's like going back behind his back trying to get money without his permission.
Well, and that's another big thing that he even says later in the movie. It's like maybe if she had a mother, she'd have someone to tell all these things to, because like there are just some things that you can't say to or that you're too scared to say to your dad, especially if you're a daughter that got knocked up, you know.
I was gonna say we should also mention how a lot of this movie is kind of structured around her coming home at night. There's a lot of scenes of that, and that's kind of in a way how Ozu shows the disconnect between her and Shishiru.
Mm-hmm.
Like each time there's a different kind of way he shows it. Like one time, I think it's the first time, she slides the door open, just like says hi real quick, just like says like, or just like nods or whatever, and just closes immediately and goes to her room. One time she said hi to Suzukahara. She turns towards the sliding door that's closed that Shishiru's behind. She just looks at it like she's gonna maybe do it, but then she just walks away and doesn't go to it. Yeah. But he just kind of shows that a lot, just to kind of it's an Ozu way of like.
Yes. No, and that's another example of what you just said is, in a lot of Ozu movies, you'll see the scene of the character coming home for the day or something.
Yes.
It'll be like they're walking up a big street, a hill, kind of, and the house will be like on kind of the top of the hill on the left or something.
Yes. And
they'll be happy usually. It'll be like Shishiru happy with his hat or something.
Yes.
That's what always comes to mind.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's like those same shots, but they're all dark.
Yes.
And one of them is the best one in this one is when I'm pretty sure Kiko's just had her abortion. Okay. And they're both kind of walking up. It's her and the sister walking up the hill alone. No music or anything. And it's almost just like they both understand.
Yeah.
Basically what happened, you know.
Yes.
And I kind of love their relationship too, because it's almost like she's the one that understands the most, because she's the one that keeps making the argument for the father. Because Akiko really never wants to say it directly. She basically never talks directly to Shishiru the whole time.
Oh yeah.
It's always like the older, basically Setsukahara making the argument.
She's the translator, basically. In a way.
The translator, the kind of more aware one of this is why she's acting this way.
Yes.
She didn't have she basically she was missing this mother figure almost.
Yes.
Well, and honestly, that just hits home that I'm pretty sure the only person that actually knows she got an abortion was the mother. I don't think Setsuko character ever knows that she had an abortion, or that she was even pregnant. Like she never tells any of them. Like she never says anything about her pregnancy to the family at all. And the only person that ever knows about the abortion is the mom, because she found out via the rumor in the mahjong parlor that she was pregnant, and then she asked her about it, and she said, "No, I basically had, or that's nothing to worry about anymore." Basically, is what she said. I feel like, because I don't think, like, definitely Chishi Ryu's character does not know anything that's happening in this movie in her life, and then I don't think Setsuko character knows anything about, like, the pregnancy or anything like that. At least on a first watch, I didn't get that.
You might be right, because I don't think it's definitely ever said. They never have a conversation about it or something, but I always assumed that she knew about the pregnancy.
Really?
I would need to rewatch it, like, keep that in mind.
Yeah,
because I feel like no one besides the mother ever knows.
It could just be like a silent, like, understanding too.
But see, that would make more sense, I guess, if Setsuko Hara's character hadn't just come home, basically. If she knew more about her life.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know, like, even who Ken is. Like, none of them know she even has a fling. Like,
Damn.
They don't know why she's coming home at night and super late or anything. I don't know. I just remember that striking me while I was watching it. How, like, it feels like, because it literally feels like she's handling this all on her own.
Oh, yeah.
Before she ends up telling her, or before her mom ends up coming out and asking her about the pregnancy later on in the movie.
No, that's a good point. Because, like, really the only way we find out about it is through that rumor scene where the kind of friends are talking about it. They're, like, basically hinting at it. I don't know. That's
well, I mean, we know about it already because she and her. Well, I mean, we don't know specifically about,
like, how we find out any other characters knowing. Basically.
Well, we find out because her and Ken are talking about their personal relationship, and basically she's like, she doesn't say I'm pregnant. I don't think she ever says she's pregnant in this movie ever either.
No.
Because I know I talked. We only get his reaction to, like, everything, and, like, is it mine or anything like that. Like she never says literally. Well, she might say, like, we're having a kid or whatever, but yeah, and they never say the word abortion in the movie either. I'm pretty sure that's just
honestly,
all implied.
That would make more sense. Like, it would make more sense what you're saying too, because even though it's like it would make sense of, like, Akiko's pregnant, but even when Ken finds out, it's like only from his point of view. Like, he only cares about himself.
Yes. Oh,
he's like very selfish and, like, how
immature about
how he takes the information. And the whole point of the movie could be, like, basically no one even knows about it, or even when they know, they don't care about it.
Well, and it just goes into the whole thing of her not feeling wanted by anyone.
Yes.
Because that's just something, if your parent leaves you, that's just something you're going to feel no matter what.
And
then the person that knocked you up is trying to avoid you, doesn't want to have your child or anything.
And that just
like
gives
that.
more evidence that she committed suicide in the end, too. Yeah, so...
No, yeah. Like, I could see her committing suicide for sure, but...
No, because the last thing she says to her mother, when she does go... Akiko does, when she goes to visit her at the mahjong parlor, she says, "Mother, whose child am I?"
Yeah.
Basically asking for her place, you know, like, she just wants to know, but...
And she says, "I hate you." So, like, both of them, well, I guess Setsuko Hara's character says it's your fault she died. She doesn't actually say, "I hate you," but Akiko definitely says, "I hate you" whenever she runs out, and then she never sees her again, so...
Yeah. This movie kills me every time.
No, it does. Honestly, there's a lot more we could talk about, but... Okay, actually, I did want to mention one thing that, because we talked about the movie a few weeks ago, is... There's a similar kind of, maybe not the same direct storylines or narrative, but there's a similar, at least, character in both movies with Paris, Texas, of the mother that runs away in this one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
From her kids, and it's kind of like never really explained, but it is seen that she has regret.
Yeah.
We kind of see a similar kind of mother figure in this one.
Yeah,
yes, for sure.
Except for in this one, it's literally shown with both kids, like Blake said, rejecting her. Yes. But also with her even saying literally of, "I don't even want to be in Tokyo anymore." Kind of just showing both sides of that. If, from the personal level, she made a decision that's too late from her, but also from, like, this kind of overall level of talking about just the modernization of Tokyo, of the mother not even being able to stay there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
And I do think, maybe I don't have too much directly to say about it right now, but I think there's some interesting connections between the mother and Akiko in terms of basically the suicide would make more sense in terms of her just not wanting to be like her mother, basically. You know?
Well, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like the abortion already kind of makes her like not like her mother in a certain way, just because she's like she doesn't want to raise a child like her. Like
she says that.
Yeah. She says that she didn't want to raise a child.
Or like she says, if I did raise it, I
wouldn't act like you.
Yes.
She was like, I never want to have a child, but if I ever do, I would never treat it like you did, basically.
No, and honestly, yeah, we didn't talk about abortion too much directly, but
it's because it's not talked about directly in the movie.
No, it's not. But that is why she decides to have the abortion, and that's why modernization forces a lot of people to have abortion. It's not because they don't want to have the kid, it's because they know they wouldn't be able to raise the kid.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Just like Akiko feels. Literally in her personal life, but also kind of you can just see the society on her as she wouldn't be able to raise a child. Look at the men around her, basically.
Yeah.
You know? Or the society around her. Yeah. And to me, that's kind of the overall theme of the movie, and maybe that's why it's kind of it's just a different like the kind of quote I mentioned at the beginning of Ozu's Rose. This is just maybe Ozu's darkest rose.
The darkest,
but it's also
the black rose.
Yeah. But honestly, but that's why it's cool. You know, it's just a different great Ozu movie.
Yeah.
Honestly. But yeah, do you guys have any last thoughts on the movie before we close it?
Amazing movie.
Great movie. A lot of shadows.
One of his best.
Because, dude, that is the thing. Like, with most Ozu movies, he lights all of his frame equally.
Yes.
So even in his natural scenes, he still lights them not naturally. He still has artificial lighting everywhere. All of his sets are, very, basically framed perfectly and everything. Not realistic.
Yes.
And he lights everything equally. Like, you're going to notice in all these color movies we're about to watch.
Yeah.
All the frames, or at least the two we're watching.
Yeah.
Every frame he has is basically equally lit. If he's showing a character in the background and then an object in the foreground, they're still lit equally and stuff.
Yeah, there's no like shadow.
But that's what makes Tokyo Twilight so special is he's using so much shadow and so much more.
You posted on Twitter the doorway shot where like it goes like in the shadows.
Yes,
my god!
Because to me it's almost like a ghost shot of what's gonna. It's like hinting towards the future.
Honestly, yeah. I didn't think about that.
Think about it. She's gonna be basically a ghost on their house.
God.
Basically with her death. And like that, basically, she's already a ghost in the scene.
She's already a ghost in the entire movie.
Yes,
honestly.
exactly. She's literally searching as like a ghost for like Ken. Like basically wandering almost.
Damn, that's honestly. I now want to rewatch it just like
honestly
in that context. That my god, yes.
Damn. She literally is. Yeah.
What a picture.
What a picture.
We'll call it. We'll call it for this week. We'll talk about more Ozu next week. And with the two movies.
Final episode.
So basically, the way I chose this is we're doing his first color movie, Equinox Flower, and his last movie and his last color movie, Autumn Afternoon. So
I'm so excited. On Afternoon was like one of my first Ozus. I didn't appreciate it fully this time, so I'm very excited to.
And you want to see it once?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and also Ozu just is insane in color. Oh my god!
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen Ozu in color?
I've seen Good Morning. Is that in color?
Yeah, it is in color, but it's definitely not his best color though.
No, I was pretty sure that was in color, but I didn't want to actually say it. But wasn't that movie 1950 also?
59.
Oh, okay, damn, okay. I thought it was earlier for some reason, but
yeah, I mean, Tokyo Twilight was his last black and white movie.
What was that 56, right?
57.
57.
And then, yeah.
But yeah, all right. We'll have a ranking next week too, probably at the end. At least all the ones we did.
Or tier list.
Tier list or whatever. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
All right. Until next time, hope to see you floating through the clouds.